Hey, what is going on, guys? XpertFusion here, and welcome to Season 10, Episode 6 of The Walking Dead If I Was the Showrunner series. So this is, of course, me going through every single episode of Season 10 and writing it myself, writing the series of events, what happens in the episode. Kind of if I was the showrunner and I was leading the show, what would I do? Not really what I think is going to happen, because a lot of the stuff I don't think will happen, but this is kind of, if I were to be writing it, how would I do it? No, I'm not a perfect writer. I am not a professional writer, so a lot of the things I may do might not be that great, but I still take a lot of thought and involvement in these stories and these episodes and kind of what I'm doing based off some of the comics material, based off of some of my own material, and based off of what they already built up in previous seasons. So let's get into this. Episode 6 is titled Belmont. You'll understand why it's titled that in a little bit. So the episode starts off with happy music playing as Maggie works together with Georgie, Eduardo, and a bunch of other Belmont residents in their large community of maybe 200 people within a small town. So this community is called Belmont. It's kind of like Alexandria in a way, but it's got like 200 people, a lot more. And it's within like a small town area. They've built houses and buildings around the area as well. And Maggie goes back to Herschel and holds him closely. She has her own room, and she has Herschel in there. Herschel's about 6 now. It is about 1 month before the current events of episode 5. This is between the time jump from episode 15 to episode 16 from season 9. There is some snow on the ground still because it is between that time jump. It's not a lot of snow though where they are. Hasn't really snowed as much. Maggie and Eduardo share a room together, but they have 2 separate beds. They're not dating or anything. Herschel has his own little bed in there as well. Maggie talks about how she hopes they can build more communities like this in between Belmont and the hilltop. Maggie looks down at the Key to a Future book, which is still in her room on her desk. Maggie goes outside and goes over some gardening plans with a few residents. She helps out the army with training on using weapons. She goes to help the chefs cook. She's basically helping out everyone. She's one of those people in the community that she's kind of like a leader in the community, but she's not the main leader. Georgie is technically the main leader. Maggie goes to talk to Georgie in her office. Maggie tells Georgie she thinks they should go past the border. They boarded off safe zones up north of the community, and Georgie deemed this area unsafe, so she doesn't want her people going out there. Georgie says last time a group of her people went there, they all ended up dead. Maggie says they'll be safer this time. They need to see what's out there. Georgie asks Maggie when she's going back home, and Maggie says in about 2 months from today. Eduardo barges into the room and tells the two that there are some strangers at the gates. Maggie and Georgie go running outside to the gates. There's a whole van full of people. There are 4 guys and 2 girls within the van. They are dirty as fuck. They have no guns either, just machetes, and one of the guys has a crossbow. The truck is on the verge of collapsing. It's a very watered-down, destroyed truck. Only one of the guys talks. His name is Rob, and he asks if they can help out their friend. She is seemingly sick, but we don't really know if she's actually sick or not. Rob says she's got a really bad fever, and Maggie questions if she was bitten, but Rob says no. Georgie says to let them in, but whispers to Hilda and Midge to keep an eye on them. The doctor of the community, Dr. Linda Schultz, takes them in to help out in her office. The girl who is sick is named Christy. Rob tells Maggie and the others that a few of their people need help. They are stuck surrounded in a school. There's 3 of them. They're surrounded by walkers, obviously. Rob asks if they can help. Maggie says she'll go. Eduardo, Hilda, and Midge agree to go as well. Same with 5 other red shirts from the community. Maggie goes back to the house and talks to Herschel. She tells him to behave himself while she's out, and that Mary, a resident from the community, will be looking after him that day. The group head out with Rob and the other guys from the group. The other girl stays back with Christy. They head out in a truck. Rob drives. Maggie is up front. They go locked and loaded with weapons. Maggie asks what they were doing at a school. Rob says they were just scavenging and the alarms went off on accident, and next thing you know, there was a herd surrounding the school. Some of them got out, but not all of them. Back at Belmont, the girl with Christy, whose name is Sharon, sneaks around the community and finds the armory. It isn't being attended by anyone, and she picks a lock to get in. She grabs a Glock and a grenade and a couple rifles. The group in the van reach the school. There aren't really many walkers around it. The group park next to the front door and walk in. They don't see much. They kind of split up. Maggie goes with Eduardo into the cafeteria. She tells Eduardo that they need to keep an eye out. Maggie says she's got a bad feeling about these people. Maggie then tries to leave the cafeteria, but the doors were locked somehow. Eduardo has his trusty spear, and Maggie has her pistol and a machete. The kitchen doors open up in the cafeteria, and a bunch of walkers pour in. Some of the walkers are modified. Some have armor. Some have spikes sticking out of them. Maggie tries her best to bust the doors open, but she can't. There's no other doors to leave from. Maggie and Eduardo are forced to fight. Hilda, Midge, and two of the guys walk into his science classroom. The two guys jump the two girls and knock them out. The other residents from the community are with Rob and some other guy. They lock them into a music room, and Rob pulls an AK-47 from behind some tables and aims them at the group. He tells them to drop all their shit right now. The residents from the Belmont surrender. Maggie and Eduardo struggle in the cafeteria against the walkers. Some of the walkers are strapped with bombs. Eduardo is fighting against a spiked walker as Maggie is forced to run up to him and slice the head off of the walker with a machete. She helps him up. Maggie grabs the bomb-strapped walker and throws it into the door. She backs up with Eduardo and shoots the bomb with her pistol, and it blows a hole in the door. They are now able to successfully escape the cafeteria. One of the residents asks Rob what the hell he's doing. Rob says their communities take everything in the area. He says there isn't anything left to scavenge because of them. The one man says that they have room for more people. They can join the community. But Rob says none of these places work, and they all go to shit anyways, so they're better in smaller groups. He says he isn't stopping till all of them are dead, so they can take over the area and use it for themselves. The man tries to talk to Rob, but Rob stops any of the talking by lighting up the 5 residents with his AK-47. Rob's friend is kind of in shock by what he just did, but he kind of accepts it. Rob says, let's get the others. Maggie and Eduardo run throughout the school looking for the others. They come across more walkers that they have to fight against. Hilda and Midge are brought to Rob in the music room. They slowly wake up. Rob asks where the cowgirl and the Spanish guy are. They say they were stuck in the cafe. Maggie and Eduardo come across the music room but don't enter it just yet. Walkers approach them. Maggie tells Eduardo to get ready to fight. Maggie sees 4 guys in the room. They take a breather and bust through the door, and in slow motion, we see Maggie shooting one guy, Eduardo shooting another. Maggie quickly shoots the 3rd guy as Rob turns with his AK-47 and starts firing. He hits Hilda in the side and Eduardo in the leg, but Maggie shoots him in the shoulder. Maggie runs up to Rob and puts her gun to his face and asks what the hell he wants. Maggie turns around to see 5 of their people dead on the floor. Sadder music starts playing as Midge also tries to help Hilda, but Hilda dies. The bullet killed her. Rob says he wanted them all dead. He wants their communities to fall. The more people they have, the more people who will tear it down. Maggie says he tried, but he failed. Rob says she must have forgot about the 2 girls back at the community. It flashes over to Christy lying in bed. She isn't really sick. She gets up and slits one of the doctor's throats with her pocket knife. Not the main doctor, it's just another doctor that was there. Sharon gets Christy a rifle, and Sharon takes one for herself. They exit the doctor's office and start a terror attack on the community. The community was having a nice little picnic, and they both kill over 20 residents with the fully automatic rifles as the residents try to enjoy their food. The girls make it out of the community and make a run for it, as some of the community soldiers go after them, but the girls make it away. Maggie gets up as Rob yells at her and says they'll all be dead in no time. Maggie doesn't hesitate and puts a cap in Rob's face. She helps up Midge and Eduardo. Maggie tells them that she needs to make it back home before anything happens, and that they'll come back for the bodies. Midge can't seem to get up. She doesn't want to move whatsoever. Maggie and Eduardo return home to see the carnage that unfolded. Maggie drops to the floor in horror to see what has just happened. Georgie just sits on the steps of her office building and then looks to Maggie in absolute despair. About 3 weeks go by, and the community is kind of in complete shambles. It isn't all happy like it was before. It's very sad, and everyone is just doing their job just to do it, not really having a good time. Maggie sits in her office as the Belmont delegates return to Maggie's room, and they give her a letter. It's the same letter that Alden wrote in episode 1 and gave it to the Hilltop, Rupert and Oscar, to bring to the Belmont delegates. Maggie reads it, and the shock in her eyes is explosive. She gets kind of dizzy and can barely stand up after reading just the first paragraph. Her thoughts of what she is reading go through her head as she tries to continue reading it. She sees all the parts that say that Enid, Tara, and Henry all died. She just puts the letter down and realizes it may be real, and she starts crying her eyes out. Eduardo walks in and tries to comfort her and ask her what the hell happened. As he looks over and reads the message, Maggie cannot believe her eyes. She tries to get outside, but she's just kind of all over the place. Maggie goes to tell Georgie she has to go back home. Georgie questions why, as Maggie struggles to say that something happened. Maggie gets onto the horse with Eduardo, Herschel, and 3 other people from the Belmont as they head off. It flashes over to the end of episode 5. Maggie sees the others. They're all very happy to see her. Ezekiel, Carol, Daryl all hug Maggie. Maggie takes a look at Michonne, who slowly walks up to her. They have a much-needed hug. Alden also hugs Maggie. Maggie questions to Alden about if all of what was said in that letter was true. Alden tears up and shakes his head up and down. Ezekiel says we got a lot to catch you up on. The episode ends with Maggie looking over and seeing Negan standing amongst the dead whisperers. Maggie stands there in shock, with tears still down her face, but she doesn't really say anything. She just looks at Negan, and episode closes there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 6. We got 2 more episodes to go for this half season. Very exciting episodes. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.